The real estate exam is the next stop after you have completed and passed the pre-license course. The goal of the exam is to test your knowledge of the basics of real estate. You should have mastered the basic concepts at this point. It's vital that you take the exam immediately after exiting the course, as the information is easily forgotten. There are also some things you should be familiar with before you take the exam. First, you will want to get the handbook. Second, you will want to know the format. Third, you will want to know what to bring with you. And fourth, you will want to know what happens if you fail. Let's look at these items in further detail. Usually, a third-party vendor conducts a real estate licensing exam. The vendor will provide a handbook for the exam, which will include most of the relevant information you will need to know about the exam and the licensing process. It is a good idea to get a copy of the handbook when you start thinking about getting into real estate. Just search for which company conducts your state's exam, and you should be able to find a copy on their website. There is not a single national real estate licensing exam. Every state will have a different exam because each state mandates their own curriculum for the exam. There is, however, a national portion of the exam that will be similar across the country. Anyways, get the handbook and become familiar with it. The handbook will also lay out what kind of format the test will be in. You may have to take the test with paper and pencil or on a computer. You will want to know how many state-specific and national-specific questions will be on the exam. You will also want to get an idea of how many questions the exam will have for each real estate topic. It is important to start preparing for this moment as soon as you get the notion to become a licensed agent. Knowing this information for the exam before you take your pre-licensing course will help you focus your learning and be better prepared when you actually get to the exam. The handbook will also tell you what to bring with you for the exam. It's also important to make sure you schedule an appointment to take the exam, as walk-ins are turned away. You want to know if and what type of calculator you can bring, or if they supply a calculator. You will not want to forget to bring money because there can be a separate cost for the exam and the license, and neither is cheap. Make sure you have at least 2 forms of ID with you when you're checking in for the exam. Know how many and what type of pencils to bring and scratch paper. Cell phones are generally not permitted, so you should leave them outside. Personal items such as hats, watches, wallets, or purses will most likely be rejected as well. The last thing you'll want to know, well, maybe not the last thing, but what happens if you do not pass the exam? Although the test might seem frightening, you should be confident if you're prepared well enough. There is the off chance that you fail the exam though, right? I mean, the exam only has a 50% pass rate after all. Failing the exam is not that big of a deal. It usually hurts the wallet more than anything because of how expensive it is to take the test. And yes, it does cost the same every time you take the test. If you do fail the exam, there's usually a wait period of a week or so before you can try again. Take the test as soon as you pass the pre-license course. The concepts of real estate are easy to forget, especially when you just spend a few weeks learning and are expected to have mastered them. It is also important that you read the test questions very carefully. The questions are designed to test your knowledge, so you will see multiple answers that seem to be correct. Read over the questions carefully and do not get in a hurry. The test does have a time limit and you do not want to go too slow. Make sure you set a steady pace and read the questions and answers carefully. I cannot stress this enough. And make sure you are well prepared. Study as much as possible. There are some study guides you can find on this website to give you an extra advantage. There are also different types of study aids such as flashcards and practice tests you can find online. The test is expensive and there is a waiting period if you fail. So study and be prepared. In closing, it is important to be as prepared for the exam as you can be. You can do this by knowing the obstacles you will have to navigate when you first decide to get into real estate. Knowing what is on the exam is critical to being prepared for the exam. In the same regard, knowing how the exam will be administered and what to bring is also important. The exam can seem like a giant obstacle that is stopping you from being a real estate agent. If you have chosen a good program and feel you know the material well, then you have nothing to worry about. Stay confident when taking your exam. Do not dwell on the average exam pass rate or whether or not you will fail. Make sure you set a good pace for the exam. Do not race through it. If you do not know the answer to a problem, make note of it and move on to the next problem. You can come back and answer the ones you left blank later. Be well rested, eat breakfast, clear your mind of doubt, and pass the real estate license exam. The next and final step to obtaining your license is ahead.